We are often asked, are we happier keeping our boat in Florida year-round as opposed to bringing her back to Philadelphia each year? Well, stay tuned and find out.
One look in your eyes and I find it. When you leave in my mind I rewind it. When you got it this good, you don't fight it.
Well, we thought we'd talk a little bit about keeping our boat in Florida year-round versus keeping it up in Philadelphia. For 6 years, we kept our boats, both our Carver 355 and our Hatteras motor yacht, in Philadelphia. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with Philadelphia, it's on the east coast of the United States, and it's about 50 miles up the Delaware River. It's a very protected area with brackish water, which is nice. I'll get to that in a second. Right now, we are keeping our boat in Titusville, Florida, which is right by Cape Canaveral. It's off the Indian River, and the water is salty, and it's also susceptible to storms down there. So, well, anyway, let's talk a little bit about the pros of keeping our boat in Philadelphia. Well, first of all, we love having our boat in Philadelphia. We keep it right on the Delaware River in Penn's Landing, and it is like having a 4-bedroom condo in Center City, Philadelphia,
Old
with
City.
Old City, waterfront property. It's wonderful, and we love having it there. We love the neighborhood. We love that it's so close to museums, some of the most historic parts of our country. There are world-class restaurants there, bars, and it's just a great place to keep a boat.
Another thing that's really great about that too is it's so close to our land house that if we ever had to go down to the boat for an emergency or for anything, it's like 20 minutes away.
Yeah, it's real close, and that's real convenient, and you kind of feel safe having the boat that close to you in case there's an emergency. Another good thing about having it in Philadelphia is that it's relatively affordable, especially compared to most marinas in Florida. Now, in Philadelphia, we paid about $800 a month to keep our boat there. That's
Pier 5 too?
Pier 5 and Penn's Landing. Penn's Landing was a little bit more expensive than Pier 5, but it included all the electricity, whereas Pier 5 we had to pay electricity. Anyway, it comes out to about $800 a month. Now, we pay something similar in Florida, but we're kind of lucky. Most places in Florida are much more expensive. And another thing we love about Philadelphia is the water is brackish. In fact, brackish leaning towards freshwater. And what that means is we don't have to do bottom cleaning. In fact, when we keep our boat in Philadelphia, we really don't have to do bottom cleaning at all, at least for any short length of time.
Yeah.
In fact, during COVID, we had our boat there, I think it was 2 years before we were able to get our boat pulled out and bottom cleaned. And when we did, it was hardly anything. It was just algae growth.
Like a green fuzz.
Yeah, that's about it. It power washed right off. No problem at all. No barnacles, nothing like that. So that's a great feature of keeping your boat, at least in the Philadelphia area. Not everywhere up north. Yeah, if you're in saltwater up north, I'm sure you're going to have issues, but not in Philadelphia. You won't. Another thing about Philadelphia is there are really never any serious storms up here. If we get hit by a hurricane, it's the tail end of a hurricane. In fact, I can't recall ever seeing winds above 60 knots in the Philadelphia area. And by the way, it's not really the winds that get you in a storm. It is usually the surge, the water. The water levels rise, the marinas fall apart, the boats go floating. That's what usually gets you.
Philadelphia's got a 7-foot automatic tide.
Yeah, there's a 7-foot tide in Philadelphia to begin with, but we are so far from the coast. I mentioned we're 50 miles from the coast that even when a hurricane goes by, we're so far up north, there's really no surge. And that's a nice feature of being in Philadelphia. So let's talk about the cons of being in Philadelphia. One of the big ones is when you're up north, like Philadelphia, you need to winterize your boat. And that can be a real kind of pain in the neck. Most boaters actually haul out in our area and put themselves on the hard, where you need to, first of all, cover the boat. Most people do either tarp it or have it shrink wrapped.
And you have to put the antifreeze in all your lines.
Yeah, you need to drain your water lines, fill them up with antifreeze so nothing freezes over. And we did all this the very first 2 years we owned the Carver. We were in a marina that required you to haul out for the winter. And many marinas do require you to haul out because they may not have, say, bubblers in to protect from ice, or they may not winterize their water lines.
They might not know how to put the bubblers in.
Yeah, they may not. We know from experience. But what happened was the first 2 years we did haul the boat out and we put it on the hard and we covered it. However, we decided later on when we moved our boats down to Philadelphia that we weren't going to do that, but we were going to heat our boats year round. And that's what we did for, let's say, the last 4 years we were in Philadelphia. We heated both the Carver and we heated the Hatteras.
And we also had to get a waterline hose that was heated.
Yes, you have to do that as well.
They're expensive.
Oh, yeah, they're very expensive. Now, as far as heating the boat, most boats, they heat themselves using heat pumps. And the problem with heat pumps in the water is that when the water temperature gets down to maybe around 40 degrees, they really stop working. Yeah. So you need to put in some type of supplemental heat if you're going to keep your boat in the water in the winter, which we did. I did some wiring around and I hooked up some 220 commercial space heaters in the boat, and they kept it warm for us.
It's very toasty.
Oh, yeah, it kept it very warm. In fact, we had to turn them down. But that's something you're going to need to do if you're going to consider keeping your boat
up north
and in the water. Now you mentioned the bubblers. Now bubblers, what they are is they you put them on the down low in the water, and what it does is it forces the warmer water up, which stops the top from freezing. Well. The marina we were in, they didn't install the bubblers correctly. They had them at the surface, which is not what you're supposed to do. So you can get ice buildup.
So we had an ice skating rink outside our boat, but it was only for like 2 weeks.
Yeah, and it only happened one out of the 6 years we were up in Philadelphia. It doesn't get that cold for that long here for the marinas to freeze, at least off the Delaware River. But it did happen. And if you're in areas that are further north, say New York or up in New England, you could have ice issues if you don't have the proper bubblers installed around the boat or in the marina to keep the ice from forming. So that's a consideration. Now, if you plan to use your fly bridge during the winter,
which we do,
you're going to need to have isinglass enclosures around it. Now, we don't do that in Florida, but up in Philadelphia, when fall hits, the isinglass goes back up, and it makes it so that we can use the fly bridge because we're heating the lower decks of the boat, and some of the heat rises. Plus the isinglass, it kind of makes it like a greenhouse.
Yeah, it's very comfortable.
Yeah, so it makes it nice and comfortable, and you get to use that part of your bridge. Yes, for cocktail parties, right? And however, if you don't put the isinglass up, you're just going to have no use of the fly bridge. And so we always opted to do that.
However, with the isinglass, if it's going to be really windy, you have to make sure it's super secure because that isinglass will crack in that cold weather.
Yeah, it does get brittle when it's cold, so you have to be careful, make sure it's all zipped up properly, nothing's swinging around or anything like that. Okay, well, one of the cons, we're doing cons, right? What do we do?
We're talking.
Yeah, okay. Bottom clean. Okay. Now, one of the other cons for us about keeping our boat in Philadelphia is we like to spend our cruising season in the Bahamas.
South.
Yep, in the Keys. And Philadelphia is 1,000 miles from Florida. And 1,000 miles getting down to the Florida Key area, and then 1,000 miles getting back, and that's a lot of fuel.
It was fun the first couple of times.
Oh yeah, it was. We've done the trip many times, and it's fun. But it's about the cost for the fuel going back and forth is about $10,000 a year for us. So that's a super con.
Plus time.
Yeah, the time. It takes us usually 2 to 3 weeks to get down, and another 2 to 3 weeks to get back. So that's a month that we can't spend where we want to be, which is in the nice warm weather island hopping in the Bahamas. Okay, well, let's talk about the pros of being in Florida. Well, first of all, the destination. We just mentioned that we love going to the Bahamas and the Keys and all that, and we are much closer, and we're going to save a whole lot of time going back and forth. And well, the other thing is we do like where we're at. We're in Titusville, which is right next to Cape Canaveral. Titusville is sort of like kind of up and coming town. It had a boom back in the early 70s, late 60s because of the Apollo missions. And now that SpaceX is doing a lot of rocket launches there, we're seeing a lot of new things happening in town. There are restaurants opening and new people coming in. So it's kind of an up-and-coming place. It's also conveniently located for us. First of all, it's close to St. Augustine, which is one of our favorite towns. And we love New Smyrna as well. It's also close to Orlando. We're only maybe 40 minutes from Orlando, so that's really cool too. Also, it's on 95. So, we're close to 95 here in Philadelphia. We basically get on the highway and just go and get off the highway, and we're at the marina. So the location's pretty cool. And of course, like I just mentioned, the fuel savings, that's a big, big pro.
Right.
Now, another good thing about being where we are in Florida is the weather. Now, of course, there are storms and things like that, but the weather, it's at least decently warm year round. I mean, sometimes it can be really hot, but even in the winter,
warmer than it is up here.
it is. And because the weather is generally good year round, we can work on the boat year round. We can wash the boat year round. We can take it out year round, and that's a nice thing about being in Florida. When you're up here in Philadelphia, your boat's kind of getting locked up around the end of October.
Yeah.
And you're not bringing it out again until the end of April. And that's just the way.
You can't. Too much ice.
Too much ice, and it's just too darn cold.
It's uncomfortable cruising.
So let's talk about the cons of being in Florida. The first one is bottom cleaning. Now, I mentioned we rarely ever have to bottom clean when we're in Philadelphia. In Florida, we bottom clean every single month. Well, we don't bottom clean. We hire a service. We have a diver come out and clean the bottom of that boat. And you need to do it once a month at least in Florida. Some people do it even twice a month when it's the summer season. But we don't, because we're traveling so much. When you're moving around as much as us, the barnacles can't build up. But when we're in the marina, and if you don't get that thing cleaned at least once a month, the barnacles are going to grow.
You'll get a reef on your boat.
They're going to grow fast. And if you can't travel that way, because you're going to get vibrations, you're going to lose fuel efficiency. So you're going to need to get the bottom cleaned regularly. We pay somewhere $150, $175 a month to get the bottom cleaned. So we're spending about $2,000 doing that.
And the zincs. Now the zincs get eaten up more down in Florida. Yeah. I think it's because of the salt water. Because we didn't have to change them nearly as much as we do in the brackish.
The zincs get changed down there at least twice a year. We're either having the divers change the zincs down below, and we probably only have to do the engines once a year. But the zincs get changed a lot quicker, and I guess it's a factor of it's salt water down there, and it's also a lot warmer. Now, I'm sure if you're up here, like we're in Philadelphia where it's brackish, but I'm sure if you're on the Jersey Shore where it's salt water, you're probably going to have to change them more often as well. One of the biggest cons about being in Florida is the storms.
Hurricanes.
You get a lot of hurricanes in Florida. In fact, our boat has been through 3 hurricanes so far and a tropical storm. Fortunately, though, where we keep our boat during hurricane season is in Titusville next to Cape Canaveral. Well, because of the way the jet streams and the Gulf Stream run, our area is very well protected from serious hurricanes. In fact, Titusville hasn't had a serious, more than a Category 1 in maybe 70 years since the last time it had that. And, but even still, we leave the boat for hurricane season. We come back up here to the Philadelphia area.
We have some good neighbors that watch our boat, Scott, Eric.
Yep.
And
James
and Mike.
Yeah, we have a lot of good friends down there at the marina who keep an eye on our boat. But before we leave, we need to prep the boat. Now, normally when we're docked, we have 4 lines on the boat. But when we leave during hurricane season, we put 16 lines on the boat. If you look at our boat, it's like a spider web of lines going.
I was just going to say that, spider web.
Everywhere you possibly can. We need to do that just to protect the boat. Even still, last year we had a piling break at our marina, and it caused our boat to swing over towards the other piling during a hurricane. Yeah. And just the friction of rubbing back and forth put a little cut out of our spray rail.
The piling's fine.
Yeah. But our spray rail, well, we had the metal strip had fallen off. I didn't replace it yet, so it was kind of exposed. Anyway, there's other things we have to, anything that could possibly fly off the boat needs to be removed.
Needs to be stowed.
We have to make sure all our boxes are all locked down. If the isinglass is usually off anyway, but we take the windows off of our fly bridge to allow.
Off of our tender too?
Yep. We do that for airflow so that nothing's getting caught up. We did lose the cover on our tender got ripped up in the last hurricane.
But I fixed that.
Yeah, she fixed that. She's at Sailrite. She uses it all the time. But you have to be prepared for hurricanes. In fact, many insurance policies require you to have a hurricane plan if you're in Florida, meaning that you're either going to get pulled on the hard or you have a very safe place to go, or some insurance policies will make you head north.
Get the hell out of Dodge.
Yeah, get above, into North Carolina and North area. So that's something to consider. And the thing is, you don't always know if the hurricane's going to hit. You have a hurricane coming and you've got advance notice and you can move your boat. But you can move your boat, and then the hurricanes go someplace else, and you just wasted all that time. And and for us being up in Philadelphia, we don't really have the time to fly down to Florida, get on our boat, and move it someplace. So that's why we're very happy where we are in Titusville, because it's a safe place to be. Another con is traveling back and forth. Now, we are in Philadelphia, and we go back and forth to the boat at least 4 times a year, and we drive. Now, you can fly, of course. We can fly into Orlando, but we never do.
Because we got a lot of crap.
Yeah, that's what I mean. If you fly, we figured out by the time we drive to the airport early, get on a plane, fly to Florida, wait, get our baggage, go get a rent-a-car, drive the rent-a-car over to the marina. It takes about 7-8 hours for us to do that.
And we have Cleo, too.
Yeah, plus we have the bird. Now, if I drive, it takes us 16 hours. And we take the bird, we have a car, we're not worried about our carry-ons or our luggage because we pack the car with everything we need, so that's why we drive. But it's a pain in the neck. When the boat was in Philly, we'd be there in 20-25 minutes. Now we're getting there in 16 hours. Another thing, I guess it's a con to us, is that we miss taking the boat back and forth. As much as it was kind of a pain, it costs a lot of money and all that, we really do miss it because there were so many great ports that we stopped at, so many friends we have along the way in the Chesapeake or Norfolk or the Beaufort or Beaufort or Georgetown and all these places that we love to stop.
We miss that.
We do miss that. So that's kind of a con. And we hope that someday we're going to take the boat back up and visit all those places again, but we do miss it. Well, that's the pros and cons of keeping our boat in Florida versus keeping it in Philadelphia. And you can tell where we came out on all this because our boat's in Florida and we're keeping it there in Titusville for the time being because we weighed all the different considerations and it works out great for us. So tell us, what works out for you? Are you taking your boat back and forth? Do you keep it in Florida? Do you keep it up north? Let us know in the comments. So until then,
subscribe,
ring the bell.
Roger out.
Cheers.
Cheers.